Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is one that starts with embarrassment, a little bit of revenge, and a moment that nobody at a fancy wedding will ever forget. It all started with a man named Daniel Carter, a single dad who had learned the hard way that life doesn't always go the way you planned it. Daniel was the kind of guy people rarely noticed. He worked long hours as a mechanic at a small garage on the edge of town and spent the rest of his time raising his 8-year-old daughter Lily. For Daniel, Lily was everything. Every morning he woke up early, packed her lunch, braided her messy brown hair even though he was terrible at it, and walked her to the school bus before heading to work. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was peaceful. That peace, however, was shattered the day a golden envelope showed up in his mailbox. Daniel stared at it for a long moment while standing in the doorway of his small apartment. Already knew what it was before opening it. Handwriting on the envelope was elegant, familiar. Emily, his ex-wife. He sighed slowly before opening it. Inside was a wedding invitation printed on thick ivory paper. Emily Harrison and Michael Grant request the honor of your presence. Daniel felt his chest tighten. Emily was getting married to Michael Grant, a wealthy real estate developer whose face seemed to appear in every business magazine lately. Daniel sat down at the small kitchen table while Lily colored pictures nearby. Dad, what's that? Lily asked without looking up. Just a letter, sweetheart, he replied quietly. But it wasn't just a letter, it was a reminder of everything that had fallen apart. Emily had left Daniel 2 years earlier. At first she said she needed space, then suddenly there were expensive dinners, late nights, and a new man with a luxury car, Michael Grant. Within months Emily moved into his penthouse and the divorce papers followed. Daniel didn't fight it, didn't have the money or the energy, simply focused on raising Lily. Now here he was holding an invitation to watch Emily marry the man she left him for. Daniel almost threw the invitation in the trash, but then he noticed something written at the bottom in small handwriting. Hope you can make it, Daniel. It would mean a lot. Emily. Daniel laughed quietly to himself. Mean a lot to who exactly? Still something inside him refused to ignore it. Maybe it was pride, maybe curiosity, or maybe he just wanted to prove to himself that he had moved on, so he decided to go. Here was only one problem. The invitation clearly said guests are encouraged to attend with a partner. Daniel stared at that line for a long time. A partner didn't have one. Most of his time was spent working or taking care of Lily. Dating was the last thing on his mind. For the next few days he tried to ignore the wedding until one afternoon on his way home from work he saw someone sitting near the entrance of a small grocery store. A woman wrapped in a worn coat sitting beside a small backpack. Her hair was messy but her posture was surprisingly straight. She wasn't begging, she was simply sitting there quietly watching the people walk past. Daniel slowed down. Something about her felt different. Walked toward the store but paused, then he turned back. Hey, are you okay? He asked. The woman looked up, her eyes were sharp, intelligent. I've been worse, she said calmly. Daniel noticed her voice carried confidence, not desperation. Have you eaten today? He asked. She hesitated. Not really. Daniel walked into the grocery store and came back a few minutes later with sandwiches and water, handed them to her. Thank you, she said sincerely. They sat in silence for a moment, then Daniel asked the question that would change everything. Do you need somewhere to stay tonight? The woman looked at him carefully. Why would you ask that? Daniel scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. Honestly, because I could use a favor too. She raised an eyebrow. What kind of favor? Daniel sighed. My ex-wife is getting married this weekend and I kind of need a date. The woman stared at him, then suddenly laughed. Not a polite laugh, a real uncontrollable laugh. You want a homeless woman to be your date to your ex-wife's wedding? Daniel shrugged. When you say it like that it sounds worse than it is. She kept laughing for another moment before calming down. What's your name? She asked. Daniel. I'm Sophia. Daniel nodded. So Sophia, would you like free food, a warm place to stay, and a fancy wedding dinner? Sophia studied him carefully. You're serious? Completely. After a long pause she smiled. All right Daniel, I'll be your date. The next day Daniel brought Sophia to his small apartment. Lily was curious but surprisingly welcoming. Within an hour the two of them were sitting on the floor drawing pictures together. Daniel watched from the kitchen, confused. Sophia didn't act like someone who had been living on the street. She spoke clearly, she was polite, and she seemed extremely well educated, but she never explained her story. Daniel didn't push. The day of the wedding arrived quickly. Daniel borrowed a suit from a friend. Sophia disappeared into the bathroom carrying a simple dress Daniel had bought from a thrift shop. 20 minutes later she walked out. Daniel nearly dropped his car keys. Sophia looked completely different. Her hair was styled elegantly, the dress fit her perfectly. She looked confident, graceful, almost regal. What? She asked, noticing his shocked expression. Nothing, Daniel said quickly. You just clean up. Well, when they arrived at the luxury hotel where the wedding was being held, Daniel immediately felt out of place. Luxury cars lined the entrance, guests in expensive suits and dresses filled the lobby. Daniel felt dozens of eyes glance at him, but then Sophia slipped her arm through his. "Relax," she whispered, "you belong here as much as anyone." They walked into the ballroom together. The room sparkled with crystal chandeliers, gold decorations, and live music. Daniel spotted Emily almost immediately. She was standing near the stage in a stunning white dress, laughing beside Michael. For a moment Daniel felt that old familiar ache in his chest. Then Emily saw him. Her smile froze, her eyes moved slowly to Sophia. Confusion flashed across her face. Daniel could almost hear the question forming in her mind, who is that? They approached the couple. "Daniel, you came," Emily said, forcing a polite smile. "Of course," Daniel replied calmly. "Emily, this is Sophia." Sophia extended her hand gracefully. "Congratulations on your wedding." Emily shook her hand but kept staring. Michael stepped forward. "Nice to meet you both," he said confidently, but even he seemed slightly curious. Throughout the evening something unexpected happened. Sophia became the center of attention. People were drawn to her. She spoke intelligently about art, business, travel, and culture. Guests began gathering around her in small groups. Daniel overheard several people whispering, "Who is she? Is she a diplomat? She must be someone important." Even the groom's business partner seemed fascinated. Meanwhile, Emily watched everything with growing frustration. At one point she pulled Daniel aside. "Who is that woman?" she whispered. Daniel shrugged casually. "My date." Emily narrowed her eyes. "Since when do you date women like her?" Daniel smiled slightly. "People change, Emily." Later during the reception, the wedding host invited guests to share short speeches. To Daniel's horror, Sophia stood up. "May I say something?" The host nodded. Sophia walked to the microphone. The room quieted instantly. She smiled warmly at the bride and groom. "Tonight is a beautiful celebration of new beginnings," she began. Her voice was calm, confident, captivating. "But sometimes the most unexpected beginnings come from the most unlikely places." She paused, glancing briefly at Daniel. "Earlier this week I was sitting outside a grocery store, unsure where life would take me next." Murmurs spread across the room. "Then a man I had never met offered me food, kindness, and dignity without asking for anything in return." People turned to look at Daniel. Sophia continued, "That man is sitting right there." Daniel's face turned bright red. "Daniel didn't know who I was or what my story was. He simply saw someone who needed help." She smiled softly. "In a world full of people chasing wealth, status, and appearances, that kind of kindness is rare." The room fell silent. "So tonight, while we celebrate love, I want to remind everyone that character matters more than money and compassion matters more than image." She raised her glass, "To new beginnings and to the quiet heroes we overlook every day." The entire room erupted in applause. Daniel sat frozen in his chair, had never felt more embarrassed and proud at the same time. When Sophia returned to the table, he whispered, "You didn't warn me about that speech." She smiled. "Some surprises are good." But the biggest surprise was still coming. Later that night, one of the wedding guests approached Sophia with wide eyes. "Excuse me, are you Sophia Loren?" The room seemed to pause again. Sophia sighed softly. "Yes." The man nearly choked on his drink. "The Sophia Loren? The tech investor?" Daniel blinked. "Wait, what?" The man turned to Daniel. "You're dating Sophia Loren?" Daniel looked at Sophia, completely confused. Sophia finally laughed. "Okay, I guess I should explain." She turned to Daniel. "My full name is Sophia Loren. I used to run a technology investment firm." Daniel stared at her. "Used to?" "Yes," she said. "Last year I sold my company for several $100 million." Daniel almost fell out of his chair. "Then why were you sitting outside a grocery store?" Sophia shrugged. "After the sale my life became overwhelming. Investors, reporters, expectations. I wanted to understand life outside that world, so I disappeared for a while." Daniel blinked repeatedly, trying to process everything. "So you're not homeless?" "Not exactly," she said with a playful smile. "But that night you didn't know that, and that's what matters." By now the entire table was staring at them across the room. Emily looked absolutely stunned. Michael whispered something to her, clearly shocked. Sophia leaned closer to Daniel. "You helped someone without expecting anything in return, Daniel, and tonight you reminded a room full of wealthy people what real kindness looks like." Daniel shook his head, still overwhelmed. "Honestly, I just wanted a date to my ex-wife's wedding." Sophia laughed. "Well, you definitely got one." As the evening ended, Daniel and Sophia walked outside the hotel together. The cool night air felt refreshing after the crowded ballroom. Daniel looked at her. "So what happens now?" Sophia smiled. "Now?" She glanced toward the city lights. "Now I think I owe you dinner." Daniel laughed. "At a grocery store?" Sophia shook her head. "Maybe somewhere nicer this time." Daniel looked back at the hotel where his past had just watched him walk away stronger than ever. For the first time in years he felt like life was opening a brand new chapter, and sometimes the most incredible stories begin with the simplest act of kindness. And that night a single dad who just wanted to survive his ex-wife's wedding ended up walking away with the most unforgettable partner in the entire room. And honestly, no one at that wedding ever forgot the moment the mysterious woman in the simple dress stole the entire show.